Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Dudley Planning Board for meeting for Wednesday, April 10th, 2024. First thing on our agenda is a notice that the meeting is being recorded. Second thing on our agenda, Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item on our agenda, approval of minutes from the March 13th, 2024 meeting. And I have two copies here. Seeing who's...
I think we're all here, right?
I think everyone was
Yeah.
here.
Yep, everyone was here, so would
Mr.
somebody
Chairman,
like
I
to
can
make
make
a
a
motion?
motion that we accept the meeting minutes from March 13th as presented.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Mr. Clark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous? Okay. You can pass those around, thank you. All right, so, next on our A&R plans, we have none for this evening, Bill?
Correct.
Okay. And number 3, report of police chief on eliminating a streetlight on Pierpont Road, shown on the plan for Pierpont Estates. So I think I saw there's an email under the new business, there's an email from...
Under new business, I believe.
Yep. And the chief is recommending that the light be installed.
Yes.
Okay.
So I spoke with Tony Zucchero about it, and he's not objecting to this,
Okay.
so there's no
He's
need
going
for
to
him to
what?
come tonight.
He's not objecting.
He's not objecting, no. So if that's what the town wants, then
Yep.
he'll go ahead and put it in.
And you gave him the email, because the chief
Yes.
recommends it goes on the opposite side, on the side, same as the stop sign.
Yes.
Okay, and he even designated the telephone pole, so,
Mhm.
okay. All right, perfect, thank you. Number 4, request for a 1-year extension of Dudley Estates.
Good evening.
Come on up, Jack, and you can sit at the table.
Would you sign in, please?
Absolutely. Good evening.
Good evening.
I represent Dudley Estates and the request for a 1-year extension.
Okay. And is there a
So
reason?
the reason being is that there's a moratorium on the water and sewer. My client, he purchased the project. The assumption was that they were going to start immediately. But with the moratorium, they are not able to start until that moratorium is lifted and the project can go ahead and commence.
Okay. Did the water department give you any idea when the moratorium would be done?
They did not.
Do we know a reason for the moratorium?
Yes, downstream, something called the Potash Interceptor,
Oh, that's right.
which carries sewage from that part of town, is over capacity. And they've been in contact with DEP, who recommended that there be a moratorium put on new connections within that particular area of town that is serviced by that interceptor. So we just can't accept any more flow until that interceptor is replaced.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Obviously, you know that we want you to be in compliance with the rules, subdivision rules and regulations. There's also some town bylaws that I think might get into the conversation. I'm thinking particularly of my new neighbors behind me. And one of them is 158-1 and subsequent additions too. And primary intent of this bylaw is to establish guidelines and regulate the removal, importation, and filling of any materials, the protection of human health, so on and so forth. And specifically, the concern that I have in terms of Legacy Landing, which we'll be discussing later, as regards to the removal of topsoil.
Okay,
I mean, it looked like it was strip mined. I mean, somebody in West Virginia has probably got family pictures that look just like that site.
absolutely.
So I would remind the applicant that it's not just the subdivision rules and regulations. There are town bylaws to be considered and hopefully agreed to or accommodated.
Yes, absolutely, we understand that.
And across the street, is that a conservation area of some sort?
Jimmy, can you speak to
I
that?
thought there was a sign there at one time at least.
We're not sure, sir.
Sure, okay.
No.
Again, hopefully, you'll have that awareness and treat it with some
Yeah.
TLC.
So once we can commence with the project, we plan on adhering by all the rules and regulations, including those of the Conservation
I
Commission.
would encourage you to do so, and thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I know the site is wet. Is there any possibility of on-site septic systems rather than waiting for the moratorium to lift it?
Jimmy?
I don't know, like we talked about, I think last time, is it's gonna require a lot more land per house. And I don't know how many houses we'll be able to put out there if the number that you guys would allow is reasonable. We had approval for 18 houses, but I know with septic system, it's not feasible. but
What size lots were those?
Probably around less than an acre, half an acre, about 20,000 square feet.
That's a open space design,
Right.
so
I couldn't
the
remember
lot
what the
sizes are much smaller, and then in return, we get the open space provided, so.
Right.
Honestly, I'm willing to work with the town, it's just they okayed us before we purchased the land that they're gonna give us the water and sewer, and then we went to get the permits and they said, no, we're not. And they have engineering involved, and they promised us 3 lots that we might be able to do on Jesse Road, and then work on repairing the sewer system after that. And it's still like, it's basically costing us 1 year of delay of interest and all that stuff, but we're still willing to work with everybody to get going on it, but it's gonna be a little bit from when I talked to the water, from George, when I talked to George, it's gonna be some time because of the backups that happened, especially this year.
It's probably like two years down the road now, though.
He said engineering are working on it, and there is a couple things that could be done, but they can't do anything till basically this time of year to start working on the stuff, so honestly, I don't even know if the year extension is gonna be sufficient for this because of the delays that's gonna be happening from the sewer department.
Well, we do suspect that we may be back here next year, because of the ongoing delays.
You're always welcome.
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
does your plan actually expire?
The plan expires in May,
May.
so
Chairman,
we're
if
a
no
little
more
ahead of
questions, I would
schedule.
move that we grant the request for a 1-year extension for Dudley Estates.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Uh,
So
Thank
It's
you.
unanimous, 5-0.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And Bill, I can reach out to you later and see if there is any other, like, what we can do with the lot, if something is available, or I don't know if you can look at it and briefly let me know how many properties could be done, and see if there's something feasible so we can go ahead with.
Okay.
We'd like to get started, right, even if it's a couple houses. So, Jimmy's willing to work with the water department and see what we can do.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
thank you.
All right, next item on our agenda. I'm just gonna, for the record, let it be known that Mr. Chinaki is signed up for the rest of the meeting. And role of the planning board as complete streets committee, number 5. And so I see that we have the full, it looks to be the full printing from 2020 in our folder here.
Unabridged.
Okay. Complete with maps. So, Bill, refresh my memory, what's the discussion on this? Is there further discussion, or?
You know, this is really for the board to consider. There was some concern about the recent project designed for Tanyard Road, Airport Road, that intersection, and the fact that the planning board wasn't really involved in that project. And so it sort of brought into question, well, what is the purpose of the planning board as the Complete Streets Committee? And did the board want to, you know, study it further, take any action, revise any of the action plan or the policy, or take any action, see what the, you know, we have the Complete Streets policy here that was approved. There are some requirements in there for the planning board to work on, you know, so just, it's an open discussion in terms of wherever the board wants to go with it. If you want to make any changes or take any action, that's up to you, and then we'll just, you know, see what we can do.
Mr. Chairman, I think this is probably here a result of some conversations that I have had or some things that I've said at previous meetings. I just call your attention to a couple of things on the first page underneath core commitment. Complete Streets design recommendations. I don't know that we ever made a design recommendation. I don't recall our voting on a design recommendation. But according to this, shall be incorporated into all publicly and privately funded projects to the maximum extent practical. Then I would go further, a couple pages further on the implementation. The board, meaning us, the Complete Streets Board or the planning board, will update and solicit feedback from the public on potential projects to engender buy-in and ensure that perspectives from the community are considered and incorporated where feasible. I believe both presentations that were made were under the auspices of the Board of Selectmen. And then, finally, we have the signature of the chairman of the Board of Selectmen back in September of 2020. So my thought is, or my feeling is, that we have a committee, and somehow we have not been allowed a place at the table. That the selectmen have usurped some of what I think are our responsibility, or some of our role, if you will. And with regards to what was mentioned by the town administrator in terms of the Shared Streets Committee, I asked for a public request for records on that in terms of any agendas or minutes, and the report that I got on the March 25th is that there are none. So I don't know where that came from or what that is, but apparently there is no record of it in town hall, and none that the town clerk was able to find. So you've got something that came out of smoke and mirrors, and you've got us, and we're apparently moved to the back of the bus.
Okay.
Bill, didn't you say there was a committee, the shared committee? Didn't you list the people one meeting?
So, when you use the word committee, you have an assumption that it's a duly appointed body of members who are representing, you know, different functions of the town, and they're sworn in by the town clerk, and they meet on a regular basis and subject to the open meeting law. And that's not the way this project evolved. There was sort of a working group, you know, for all the projects that go on in town. We get together, you know, talk about projects, work with the consultants, and try to advance all these initiatives forward. So it's not a committee, like a committee is established by the town or the selectmen. It's just
Like
a working group of people who are working on the project to try to get it to completion.
If I may, I think the town administrator referred to the selectmen specifically as being that committee. And if you
Name
look
them all.
back at the grant, I think the grant application was $177,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's dated 2022. So it's not like, you know, somebody missed something because it was yesterday and they couldn't catch
Right,
up.
yeah.
This has been out there for some time. So our involvement effectively has been ignored for better than 2 years. And again, I refer to the fact that the selectmen's chairman signed this document. I think, honestly, I don't know if I'm going to get myself in more trouble than I am already with this, but I think this is administrative overreach.
Not from the town administrator.
Please?
Not from the town administrator.
Oh, God forbid, no. It must have been someone else. I'll look under the table and see if I can find them.
So I think, you know, the issue is really one of communication. You know, the planning board should have been involved. This policy, I think, as you point out, sort of.
I think we got to get a statement from them that they are either going to stand by this, or, as the town administrator suggested, our role is complete, and we can just fade away into the never world.
Well, I think this policy
I never saw, and I haven't attended every meeting, but I've been to a good number of them. I've never seen or heard of their even considering withdrawing as far as this
Right.
policy is concerned. So my assumption is, and that's again, a nasty word, that this is in effect, has been for 4 years or so running. And this other thing that they've come up with, or not they, a specific individual's come up with, is just out of whole cloth.
You know, I think part of the issue was that it's a different program than the Complete Streets program. So I think the feeling was, well, it's really not a complete streets project.
Again,
It's a
I would
shared
remind,
streets.
I'm sorry, Mr. Scanlon, but if you look at the application is replete with references to complete streets meetings. No
Yeah.
reference to shared streets in any case. And the application went in as complete streets. And again, dates back to 2022.
So,
Those are the documents that I've seen.
so what is the sentiment of the board? Do you want to send a letter to the selectmen to remind them that this policy is still in effect and that in the future, planning board should be, their input should be sought?
I heard Brutus saying that they were going down the list for that the planning board set up when he was talking about this shared street thing that they were just doing. So obviously they're not, because number one on this list is I guess it is,
Yeah, but the intersection here is number 13.
yeah, okay.
So we've completed number 1, which was the Mason Road sidewalk, well, the first part of it anyway, and now we've jumped to 13.
Yeah, so who's making that decision, I guess, is to jump over all those things, because it seems like this is more of like, you did this for nickels, you know what I mean? Like, they got the bar there, the kids walking across the street, instead of going down the list.
So, you know, the town is trying to be opportunistic when funding sources come up, apply for the money to work on projects on the list. And if you're waiting for a program to get to the second item on the list, you might miss
Right, 'cause-
opportunities for other
Because
projects.
we did get the money for complete streets for Mason Road, we're now in a, 3 to 5 year waiting period?
Correct, right.
For the next round of funding, so
Right.
this was an opportunity that was outside of complete streets.
And this actually is not something that was generated internally. The Central Mass Regional Planning Commission got wind of this new program and asked the town specifically about this intersection. So, you know, they wrote the application for us and it was funded. So that's just taking advantage of a new funding opportunity.
So what's the board's pleasure?
Well, I don't know, how should I say this? I don't usually go back and watch board of selectmen meetings, and I don't even watch our own meetings, if I just want, quite frankly. I just don't
It's
have,
must-see TV.
I just don't have the time. But, you know, being on the outside a little bit, just hearing bits and pieces from either conversations in here or otherwise, I had the impression, as was stated, that there was a funding opportunity opened up, and that the town jumped at it to try to get this taken care of. I know that we had talked about, or the CM, I'm getting the initials, the acronym wrong,
CMRPC.
There you go. There was, one of our tasks was to try to do some kind of painting in that intersection to see if that would kind of help the traffic and the public get used to a new pattern or whatever. And I think that whenever this funding opportunity or presented itself, that the whole project kind of got jump-started. And I think that well, just let me finish, okay?
Finish, go ahead.
That it's just my opinion, I don't know, I can't say it's fact, but my opinion is that the Board of Selectmen / town administrator had jumped in to take care of an issue that was facing town. And they jumped in, and maybe they were a little over exuberant, but I mean, I think that it was good of them to take care of the opportunity, take advantage of it, good of them to move so fast on it. I probably would have liked to see a little bit more of my own input personally, but then again, I could have been at the meeting and I wasn't, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, that was quite a leap, actually, to about 24 months in duration in terms of their application in 2022. And we didn't know anything about it effectively until it was brought up here at town in the Board of Selectmen's meeting. So there was more than ample opportunity to involve the Planning Board, the Complete Streets Committee. Again, the application dates back to 2022. It wasn't, you gotta get it in by the end of March, kind of thing. There was plenty of time, plenty of opportunity we were supposed to have had on that March 25th meeting, as it was, no, the March 11th meeting, as it was originally posted, was supposed to have been a joint meeting of the Planning Board and the Board of Selectmen. And that mysteriously was erased when the final agenda was published. We were no longer a joint meeting, and we were no longer at the table, if you will.
And I was trying to attend that meeting, so that was unfortunate. I mean,
Right.
I agree.
Well, I don't think it was unfortunate. I think it was somewhat by, yeah, I'm going to stretch it a bit perhaps and suggest that it might have been by design. I had made comments earlier on that we're probably not looking to have them repeated in an open meeting as a joint meeting, if you will. So if we don't have a joint meeting, effectively, all I am is a resident speaking without the board, if this board or this body resident. I think we ought to get them to say, hey, guys, are you going to live with this thing? Or is this just so much paper we're going to, where's the recycling bin? And then Mr. Ruda's suggestion, I'd like to see if he can walk that back a bit in terms of, we've done our job, we're not needed any longer. I forget the exact wording that he used, but certainly it was wording to that effect. Or am I stretching that, Mr. Seaman?
I don't know.
Everything diplomatic. This guy must have been born in Switzerland, I'll tell you. Well, in any event, I think that needs to be walked back at least a little bit. If we're going to have a complete streets committee, and they're going to use our meetings as documentation to apply for things, at least let us know what's going on. And 2 years, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there. I know the budget is all-consuming of the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to the meetings in this room, but 2 years? Where were you?
Yeah, I don't think it would be out of place to put a letter together to the Board of Selectmen. First of all, thanking them for their action with this intersection, and then just reminding them that we'd like to be involved if, moving forward.
Everybody
Is
agree
this
with?
shared, this shared streets, that's what it's called? Is that
Complete
subcommittee or whatever? Is that
doesn't
still in
exist.
effect, or?
That's their committee.
It doesn't exist.
There isn't a shared streets committee.
It doesn't exist. It
John
was
Ruder
attested to the
said
fact
that
that
it
it
does.
existed, but it
They
does not
They must have had
exist.
meetings though, right?
He was referring to the daytime working group who met on a lot of projects in the town, including this one, so he might have called it a committee, but it's
It's like a,
I
not
do,
a committee.
I apologize.
An
I
ad
think
hoc
we're trying to
committee.
put you in a position of explaining, or even if you will, trying to unravel the thinking in terms of the town administrator. And I think that's unfortunate that we've kind of cast you in that role. And I appreciate your attempts at diplomacy because they, again, your Swiss background is showing.
all right, so are we in agreement that we would, do we need to vote on this, or, Bill, do you think we should take a vote on it? That we send a letter to the Board of Selectmen?
Sure, I can write one
Basically,
and then we can.
basically outlining what Mr. Edmondson just said, that thanking them for the work on this particular intersection, but going forward, if they could include the planning board,
We have a role to play.
right, as the
According
complete,
to this
as the
document.
complete streets committee.
So move.
All right, we have a motion, do we have a second? Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank
So,
you.
I'll draft the letter, guy, and send it to you for your signature. and-
Yep, yep. Did you ever find that stamp with my,
No, I didn't look.
oh, okay.
Okay, I'll look for it.
There should be one in there. It's vintage, though, it's probably 20 years old. Okay, next item on our agenda, standard business. Discussion, status reports on finishing construction of and acceptance of unaccepted subdivision streets, including Pierpont Estates, Rocky Hill Estates, Country View Estates, Eisenhower Drive, Tilden Farm Estates, Lyons Estates, Sophie's Way. And that's it for this page.
So on Pierpont Estates, you just talked about the street light.
Street light, yep.
The developer is really trying to finish it out. He's got a number of items he needs to complete up there in order to finish the construction work. I don't know whether he'll be ready for this town meeting,
Or the fall,
but probably for the fall, I would suspect.
okay.
So I think it'd be nice to wrap this one up and get
Yep.
the time to accept the street. For Country View Estates, Eisenhower Drive, you may recall, we've spoken about this on a number of occasions, and the issue there is really with the sewer pump station.
Yeah.
the board had voted to use the remaining $10,000 or so left in the escrow to finish that pump station. But as it turns out, the electrical cost, which they thought would be just a few $1,000s, was a lot more than anticipated. So their estimate now is that it's about $20,000 to complete the pump station. And then whatever else might be required for the road work, which I don't have a handle on yet. But Highway Superintendent and Jeff Walsh are gonna go out and look at the street and come up with
Estimate.
a punch list or whatever that needs to be completed.
Okay.
So I think the only way that work would get done is through a betterment program. And I know the planning board in the past has volunteered to invite the residents into a meeting to talk about it. So once I get the numbers, I'll go ahead and send a letter out to the folks and set up a meeting. I assume it'd be a regular planning board meeting.
Yep.
They can come in and talk about it and
That
see.
that doesn't necessarily have to be advertised as the public hearing, it's just
Correct,
an informational meeting.
right.
Okay.
And under the town betterment law, it's owners of more than 50% of the frontage have to agree to do the betterment. And then it goes to town meeting for approval. And if town meeting approves it, then the work gets done and there's a betterment eventually
Mhm.
put on the individual properties.
I think it's all gonna come down to like, how much dollars and cents are we talking about, you know? Is it $1,000 a house, or is it 10,000 a house, you know, and where does it fall, so, yeah.
How many houses are there, residents? Do we know offhand?
I think there's somewhere
dozen?
between 15 and
15?
17 houses there.
12, 14 maybe.
Yeah, there's quite a few, it's a
a good
bigger,
amount.
it's a bigger subdivision than
Couldn't they
usual.
go through like a water sewer betterment, so they don't have to follow that 51%? Like water, I know water and sewer have their own betterments, but usually it's like for bringing sewer lines in, but would
The
that be
town has
something?
done sewer betterments in the past,
Yeah,
but
so
that
has the
would still
water
mean the
department ever
road-
thought about that, or
Well,
talked
the
to you
goal
about
is to
it?
get the street accepted,
Right.
the subdivision finished, and the town take it over. So yes, you could do just the sewer as a betterment,
But
but I
that's
think
just
it makes
kicking
more
the
sense
can
to do
down the
whole
road.
thing.
Yeah, but if we have enough in the escrow to do the as-built and whatever Jeff Walsh finds out that we need.
But if we don't, then we're right back where we began.
I mean,
taking a stab at the whole thing.
Might be easier to get the water sewer betterment than the other one.
I don't think it's gonna be a big
Yeah, I
difference.
don't think it's not that much money, so.
Let's see what it comes out to, let's see what the numbers are.
Right.
Well, just off the top, it would behoove the residents to do this as quickly as they could, because things are not gonna get better
Better,
or take
no.
care of, you know, they're not gonna
No.
heal themselves.
And I think everybody that lives there knows they got a problem,
Yeah.
so.
Well, problem that won't go away.
No, and I think really they need to know how big the problem is, so if we can give them
Before
that.
you, before you turn the page,
Oh,
I got an email from Steve today about Sophie's Way.
okay,
The National Grid has set the pole and moved the wires. The underground wiring is underway. The existing pole needs to be removed, and then they can start paving probably in early May. So that project is moving forward. So that's the latest update I have on that.
So would the pole relocation have to go before and be approved by the selectmen?
It was.
It was, okay,
Yes.
that was the one that was considered last time,
Yes.
okay.
on our next page, we got inspections and actions associated with site plans, so we have Legacy Landing, Country Club Estates.
Chairman, I'm gonna recuse myself for a
Sure.
minute here.
SCP Solar Oxford Avenue, JD&D Oxford Avenue, Stevens Mill, and the solar project at the landfill. Have any?
I did send you the report from the town's
Weston?
consultant on the solar
Yeah.
project at the landfill.
So this is from Weston and Sampson Engineering?
Yes, correct. So you can see, got pictures there that show the work that was underway, mostly related to the wiring and the placing of the ballasts. So work is proceeding there on schedule as far as I know. If you have any questions or comments on that, I can pass those back to the engineer.
I thought there wasn't supposed to be any panels on the hill itself, you know what I mean? Like on the incline or decline, whichever way you're going, I guess. Because I know in the back they have some, right, like, it's literally on the hill. Like, if someone dug out all those rocks, that would just tip over, I assume.
I thought there were, but I'm not sure, I haven't, compared
Yeah, I haven't looked at
what
the
they've actually
plan
done to the
either.
plan.
I was just looking at it the other day in my backyard.
Okay.
I thought the guy was saying that he couldn't even put it on the hill. But they started putting those little cement blocks for the fencing, so.
Mhm. I'll check, see what I can find out. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, on the project.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, staying with Mr. Durgan's thought, there's my backyard, if you will, is now Legacy Landing. And having walked through there recently and talked to one resident in particular, and I have some pictures I could share with you. I mentioned earlier that there is a town bylaw with regards to, I call it strip mining, but it's actually taking the topsoil, if you will, and what happened in this case it was piled up at one point. You might have seen that near the church property at some point. It was like a 40-foot high pile, which was gradually trucked off and sold, I assume. Well, what people there are left with, and I guess you'd see the pictures, but I think walking through will give you a better sense of it, is it's just rock. I mean, it is a disaster. And just reading again from that bylaw, after final grading and leveling and not later than October 15th of each year, the filled or excavated portion shall be covered with not less than 4 inches of suitable topsoil. I don't think you got 4 inches of suitable topsoil anywhere on any one of those properties. I'm not sure what's going on there, but you got a lot of rock. I'm not sure whether all of the waivers that we granted, and I think there were 21 in number, gave him permission to do that, but it does look like the darn thing has been strip mined, if you will, and I would invite you to walk through if you have opportunity to do that. This guy goes on to say, shall be seeded and planted with suitable ground cover within 200 feet of the current excavation operations. I don't see this covered, and I tried to check with Mr. Scanlon earlier. It's not in the subdivision rules and regulations to any extent. There is another mention somewhere in the bylaws of something called mining. That doesn't seem to apply, but I think this does have application here, and by reference, I would refer to bylaw 158. And I would add one other thing as an observation walking through there, which I've been doing somewhat, well, pretty regularly of late. The driveways are already cracking. I don't know, we gave this guy 21 waivers, and he went right for the wallet, as far as I can tell. I don't know what these people are getting in terms of value for their money, but there's already an issue with it. Number 17 is one of the residences, where you can see that, and there's another one. A gentleman informed me today that his was the worst of the cracking. So, I don't know where we stand in terms of future developments such as this, but I think we need a little due diligence in terms of maybe taking care of our new neighbors, if you will, going forward. And I know that their homeowners association has issues, and I believe they're going to try to address those, but I think it behooves us, if we get another one of these developments or something similar to it, to be very cautious in terms of making sure that there's adherence both to the subdivision rules and regulations and also town bylaws in their entirety.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you notice the cracking before the earthquake that we had last
I'm
week?
sorry?
Did you notice the cracking before?
I don't know. I think they predate that, but certainly the earthquake wouldn't have made it any better. Just as a point of reference, we had that issue with regards to Nichols College and where they were going to have their retention pond, and I think I raised the question about earthquakes at one point in that regard, and everybody thought that was kind of silly. And then if you look a few days back, that was the top item in terms of the news. I mean, national news, earthquake in New England. My God, how did that happen? Well, it does happen.
Either that or an eclipse.
Well, it was before the eclipse, but it didn't even overshadow the eclipse, I'll grant you that.
Okay.
Would you like me to have Graves Engineering do an inspection on this project, or?
It's been a while since they've been there, right? And how far, so we don't really know how far along they are. I mean, I got to imagine they're pretty close to wrapping up. But they haven't started the top coat paving on the roads or anything
No.
like that.
No, they've got a big trench.
And we
they've
gave
dug
him an
something.
extension until June or July of this year, correct?
Yes, we did.
So if they don't have it all paved by June or July, he would be coming back for another extension.
Right.
Okay.
Do have a question, Mr. Chairman, going back to JD and D 24 Oxford Ave. as I mentioned, I think earlier, I drove by that building today, and I believe there's a for lease or for sale sign on the building, or leaning up against the building.
Okay.
There didn't seem to be any vehicles in the lot that I could see. Looks like it's very much inactive, if you will. So I'm
There
not
was
sure.
a poll hearing with the selectmen to provide power to that building.
Okay.
Was that building?
Yeah, they were changing the pole,
Yeah. I think they needed three-phase power in there or something like that, so.
and there was actually a customer looking at that place the other day.
Oh, there
too.
was?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is apparently on the market, or, well.
Well, that's none of the planning board's business.
No,
who
no, no,
owns it,
no.
But we want to see the project
I believe
completed.
this is the one that was a family
But we are
tragedy
talking about it, Bill, right?
associated
Yes.
with it.
It's
yeah.
not planning board business, but we are talking about it at length. Just want to make sure we're aware of that.
Well, the planning board approved the site plan.
Right.
Right, but we don't care about the sale.
Correct.
All right.
Assuming the.
So if I could
whoever
speak for a
purchases it.
second, I wouldn't mind going back to Legacy Landing. As far as I understand, the building inspector is in charge of the buildings themselves, code and everything. And as far as the site work is concerned, that is a thing for the planning board / the town. So if for some reason the developer didn't put any loan down, didn't seed or whatever else, we would be able to take his money that he has in escrow and get everything finished up for him, right?
Right.
So it's nothing to state that it's gonna be in permanently. I mean, there will be some resolution, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
Do we know how much money is in the escrow?
No, I do not.
Just to the point of information, the governing body with regards to this particular bylaw, apparently the Board of Selectmen. If
Yeah, but-
a permit to remove topsoil would have to come from the Board of Selectmen.
What's the citation on that bylaw?
158.
It's usually a building inspector's job.
Well, according to this, and it refers to the board and its identification as
Usually you have to
definition,
get, usually
the
you have to
board
get
is
a
the Board of
permit.
Selectmen.
Usually you have to get a permit from the Board of Selectmen if you want to remove or
Or import any?
import any solid.
Excessive amounts, there's a
Yeah.
certain limit.
Yeah, yeah, it might be like 50 yards or 100 yards or something like that, but, yeah, if you want to bring in or export, you know, you're supposed to go before the board and get a special permit.
Okay.
And there's the whole list in terms of conditions, in terms of records that are supposed to have been kept too, in terms of what was apparently, in regards to some parts of this bylaw anyway. It's several pages, so.
So is the complaint that there's no topsoil out there?
Yes.
Or that it was exported?
It's more than a
wrongly?
complaint, it's an observation. I can show you pictures.
No,
You'll see my shadow, and
We're-
I apologize for
Good
the
God,
poor
just for a
photography.
second, let someone else talk.
Okay.
Just for a second. So I'm trying to figure out what the complaint is. I don't care, but are we worried that there's no topsoil there? Because I don't know if that's a concern, considering the fact that it's been the winter. He's probably gonna wait until the summer and start bringing, or the spring and start bringing things in now. If there's a concern, which is what half the conversation is about, is a bylaw, that hasn't been followed, there's been an issue there, then that's something completely different. I think if we identify what the complaint is, then we can try to find a resolution and stop going back in circles. That's just my take.
I think, if we had Graves do an inspection and ask them specifically to look at the soil issue, we could get a report from them in terms of whether they've complied with applicable regulations.
I think like Dan said, it was winter, so give them time.
It expires this year, right?
In June.
In June? Yeah. Until June, he's gonna have to come back for an extension if it's not done.
Well, if I may, and I'll try to keep it brief, there was topsoil on site.
Right.
That has been removed. In order, I understand the season of the year being what it is, but I find it hard to envision them trucking any amount of that back to replace what was taken off the site. Why would they take it off in the first place, would be one question. And the expense of taking it off and bringing it back seems, contractors move in mysterious ways. Maybe he's got some magic that he's gonna apply, but
Yeah,
it's
generally-
not there now.
Generally speaking, contractors have what they call means and methods about how they get a job taken care of. And I don't know the specifics of this site, but if there is a lack of room on the site where he can't store it, instead of moving the soil back and forth in order to complete projects, it could be cheaper for him to export and bring it back.
If
So
it-
that way he can complete projects and have enough room on the site. There's some isn't there open areas up there though?
Yeah, he had it stored, so it was not part of any of the properties. And you may have seen that, it's adjacent to the parking lot. In fact, it was actually, because the silt barriers were such that it was actually collapsing into not the parking lot, but the apron around the parking lot. So it was not in the way in terms of any other construction or in the way of any of the property owners at that time. And it was It was a deep, dark, round, 40-foot
The
at
John
least
Tyson Churchill,
pile.
I remember seeing it up there, yeah.
Yeah, and now it's gone.
It's gone.
And you
Well,
got a
maybe-
bunch of rocks.
Maybe he took it to have a screen somewhere. Maybe he's gonna screen it, who knows?
All right, that's along with the weather report, very optimistic. Thank you. I just, I think we need, if we get another one of these, we need to consider some of this, or some thoughts along these lines.
Okay, moving on. Planner's plate. Anything from you, Bill?
Just to remind you and the public that we have the public hearing on the shared driveways zoning amendment next meeting,
Next meeting?
at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
I also wanted to note that I had asked the ZBA for their comments on the change of the special permit granting authority from the ZBA to the planning board. And I don't know whether they're going to be meeting before the hearing, so we may not get
Input.
an official recommendation from them on that.
But they're always welcome to come to the
Right.
public hearing,
Sure, or individual members could come and, speak to it.
or write us a letter,
Right.
an email, yeah.
Mhm.
So I think I mentioned it last meeting, I might not be present
Yes, you
at
did,
the
yes.
next meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Trying to finalize that.
And the other issue was the short-term rental bylaw that we had sent to the selectmen. I believe they decided to postpone action on that. It won't be on the warrant for this year, for this annual town meeting. I think they felt that, the budget issues would sort of dominate the discussion, and they didn't want to present something that might be,
Distracting?
so in any case,
Something that's gonna generate money?
What about the room stacks part? Would that be, could
Uh,
that still go
I
forward?
don't believe
So-
that's on the warrant either.
Postpone everything that makes money.
So I think maybe it might come up in the fall, I don't know, but it won't be
Okay.
on the annual.
Wow.
Bargain for selectmen.
And then the last item was the community development block grant that we received for the sewer and sidewalk work in the village area.
Mills?
It's being advertised.
Yeah.
Bid opening will be in early May.
Okay,
After that, we'll select a low bidder and sign contract and get that work underway.
okay,
Primarily, I think the first phase in the first year will be to do the sewer work, which is the underground utility work, and then probably the following year will be the sidewalk work.
okay.
So we'll see where the bids come at. Hopefully, we can get the entire project completed.
This is over in front of the Mill Street and,
Middle Street, Village Street, Hard Rock Place.
yeah,
There's also a crossing, I believe, of West Main Street.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Is that, we're gonna fix that sidewalk in front of the building where it hits the corner there?
Yes.
That's our job now?
Yep.
Okay. I thought that was gonna be the developers, but okay.
I believe it's in our plan.
Gotcha.
That's it for the planner's plate.
Okay, next item, comments from the planning board.
Well, question to the planner, have we heard anything further regards to Stevens Mill?
No.
No. That's about it.
Anybody else? Comments from the audience?
Yeah, I got a couple. Steve Watroba, former planning board member. So, just listening to the meeting tonight, there was a couple of things I wanted to rehash. The Complete Streets Committee, the thing about the Complete Streets Committee, I completely, wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Clark's assessment that it was more than an oversight that the Complete Streets Committee was left out of the whole plan regarding the situation up there at 10-Yard Road, because obviously that plays into where the sidewalks are gonna go from there. The hope that we talked about originally sidewalks going past the cemetery, taking care of the Ramshorn Road intersection and sidewalks down to the school. So that's why it's very important that the planning board's Complete Streets Committee would have been involved with that. But however, talk about disbanding it or that its job is done, that's just not the case, because Complete Streets Committee, you think of it, it's basically a committee that lies dormant until there's something to do. Right now, it's not done, it's dormant, because there's a waiting period before we get the next bite at the apple. But when that bite at the apple comes, you've got to have the committee in place and ready to go. And you go back to your list, like Dan talked about the list, you know. You jump around on the list when you have to. What did we do? Mason Road wasn't number one on the list, but we knew that we couldn't get the engineering done in time, so Ty and Bond already had the engineering done for the sewer, so it worked out, so we switched it up a little bit, and it worked out. But Complete Streets, it's not going anywhere. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it shouldn't go anywhere. So there's that. One of you gentlemen asked about conservation area on Jesse Road across from,
I did.
that's the Shepherd Hill Conservation Area. So there's actually 3 or 4 houses across the street from there, but there's actually a thin little strip of land that goes in and it opens up in the back there to a large conservation area, which is called the Shepherd Hill Conservation Area. So that's probably what you were alluding
Through the
to.
chair, do you recall, there was a sign there, I don't know if it's still in place now.
Yeah, I think there might be. You know, that is so wet over there, I don't even know if that's actually a trail going in there. I mean, if you look on Mass Mapper, you can actually clearly see the outline of the conservation area. You can see the outlines of the lots. You can actually also see all the lot lines of the subdivision that isn't built yet because it was approved. And it's been approved so long that Mass Mapper had a chance to actually put it into their data, so.
Well, the whole area is very wet.
Well, that's, oddly enough, ironically, that's Potash Brook that goes through that property. The same brook that, once it goes under West Main Street, goes down towards Prospect and causes all the trouble that everybody's talking about with the sewer lines. And as far as the moratorium goes, the moratorium on the sewer, I've been watching the sewer department meetings closely, and their talk is that they're hopeful to go out to bid and shovels in the ground by summer of 2025 to fix the interceptor problem. There's 2 problems, and this is not anything, this isn't a secret. This is mentioned at open meeting at sewer department meetings, so I'm not giving away any secrets here. You've got what they call an I&I issue, which is infiltration of rainwater into the system, and then you've got a bottleneck situation down at that interceptor where the pipe gets smaller and it makes a couple of turns and it's old. So Ty and Bond did a report and said, well, there's 2 things you need to do to fix it, or one thing you need to do really well, I guess, would be a better way to say it. They said the system as it is right now, if you don't expand and add more users and you fix the I&I problem by itself, that would be enough to stop it. And that's obvious, because when do we have an event that causes a backup? Right after a huge rainstorm. And so if you fix the I&I problem, which they have a pretty good idea, it's the Tanyard Road area, something up there. That's where it seems like they have opened up pumping stations and witnessed the water coming in at a good clip. So if they fix that, that's fine. Takes care of the problem for now. But then if you add more users, you're gonna start to run into the bottleneck problem. So the sewer department wants to move forward with both solutions simultaneously. The bigger one is taking care of that bottleneck, and that's what they're looking at, getting the engineering done, gonna put it out to bid, and they're hoping shovels in the ground. I think they said summer of 2025 is what, originally it was like fall. However, there is a possibility they might be able to start issuing some tie-in permits prior to that work being done. If they take care of the I&I portion of it, they might be able to go to the state. If they can show that they've reduced the I&I flow a certain amount, then they could say, okay, well, then we could add this much more. So you've got kind of a, my understanding is it's kind of an unofficial waiting list of people that are looking at wanting to tie in and can't right now because of the moratorium. And so that's, I asked the question, I didn't get an official answer, but I said, well, what happens if you have a large subdivision come forward and says, you know, they want to tie in? And if they've got 20 houses, what does that do? And they said, well, they wouldn't give them all 20 under the current situation, even if they do fix I&I, because they've got other people that have maybe one house lot. There's one house in town I know of right now that's, it's under agreement, but it's not closing because they're still trying to work out the fact that there's sewer in the street in front of the house and they can't tie into it. And the lot's too small. So they don't have enough room to put a septic system in there. So, All right, that's all I had, gentlemen, so, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would thank the gentleman for enlightening us with regards to water and sewer.
Sewer, yeah.
Apparently, we haven't been watching enough TV to get the details there, but thank you for that. Appreciate that. And it's too bad that the gentlemen that were applying for the extension weren't still here to hear your comments. I might have provided them with some information that they might not have been aware of. They don't want to hear it? Okay. Well,
All right, other business. Next regularly scheduled meeting will be April 24th, 2024. Approval of consultant vouchers, bills and payment of bills. Do you have any of that?
No.
Nope, no invoices,
No
okay.
bills.
Other town notices? Other correspondence?
I don't know if you want to mention the election. There are 2 seats up for election this year.
Okay,
A guy and Tom are up for a reelection. So, I don't know if it's too late to pull papers for people that might be considering it, but as far as I know,
Can always
both of
run
you
it-
have
they
full
can always run a
papers.
write-in campaign,
Yes.
those are good up to the last minute.
Right.
I think you can turn them in the 22nd.
Okay.
Right? I got
Yeah.
mine right
Oh, good.
now. It's at 22nd.
The only other, I would mention, Mr. Chairman, there's a meeting tomorrow night. I think it's the FAA and the Board of Selectmen. I believe the state has come up with some new numbers, which will be, I believe, under consideration at that meeting tomorrow evening. I know it was mentioned earlier that the budget is all-consuming, and that's just, I don't know how many chapters were into this in terms of budget consideration, but there have been a number of FAA, Board of Selectmen meetings, school committee chairman meeting, the last Board of Selectmen meeting. The saga goes on, and maybe a little bit better this time with some of the new numbers available to them.
Okay, that seems to be it for tonight. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second from Mr. Chinaki, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.